Hi and welcome back to another episode of Rick's Garage. This time I will be covering the front subframe removal on my Alfa Romeo GTV. The GTV does share the same subframe with the Alfa 156, the Alfa 147 and the Alfa GT. Also the Fiat Coupe. So if you have any of these cars, this video will be useful to you, although bear in mind there may be some subtle changes here and there on your specific car, but nevertheless you will find this useful. If this car shares the same subframe with any other cars that I haven't mentioned already, please comment down below. But yeah, I've covered a step-by-step process for you. As much detail as possible. I did struggle a little bit with the lighting, and needless to say it took me 10 times longer the job than it would have done if I hadn't have been recording, but there you go. So yeah, let's crack on and enjoy. See you in a bit. Okay, so as you know, the rear end restoration is complete. Well, 95%, just a few little bits and bobs to finish off. But overall, really happy with it, really proud of it. Put a lot of time and effort into it. I just wish I would have taken some video footage of it for you. But anyway, time to commence with the front end restoration. As you can see, a lot of surface rust, but the video makes it look better than it actually is, to be fair. It's not terrible for a 20-year-old car. I've seen a lot worse. But now a lot of joints are knocking, a lot of worn bushes, and corrosion is setting in on top of the subframe. So now it's just a good time to strip it down and completely rebuild it. So as you can see, I've got the car set in the air, lots of height, lots of clearance. You'll also notice I've got some wooden cribbing underneath as well as the axle stands. The wooden cribbing is just a fail-safe. When the car isn't on axle stands and I've got a different kind of job to do, I will set the wheels on top of these cribbing as well, which is really useful. But otherwise, when I'm not using them in that way, they do go underneath the car as a little fail-safe. Here's a little comparison video of a normal axle stand compared to my high lift heavy duty axle stands. Big difference. So, getting stuck into it. First off, wheels off. My garage is a little tight to work around, but I'm just glad that I've actually got one. Second job is to remove the chassis plates. There's 10 bolts in total. There's 2 long bolts at the front, which are 15mm, and there's 8 which is 4 in each plate. They are 16mm. And after you remove those, time to tackle the engine mount. There's 3 bolts, 1 going into the subframe and 2 holding the arm on to your diff. First off, you want to support the engine a little bit, although it's not absolutely necessary because the engine is supported by the 2 main engine mounts either side and 1 inside the engine bay, but it is just a good idea just to stop it dropping a little bit. So on the engine mount, the smaller bolt is a 19mm and the 2 larger bolts are 24mm. You don't want to undo the top one all the way, just crack it off a little bit. On the bottom bolt, move all the way out so the arm will drop down and pivot. There's a reason for me doing that, which I'll show you in a bit. And next it's on to the pinch bolts for the bottom ball joints. That is a 15mm bolt and a 7mm nut. and I have got the luxury of being able to lever that joint apart because I'm completely replacing everything. But if you're not, then obviously you'd want to use a proper ball joint splitter. A little tap on the outside of the rotor with a dead blow hammer makes it easy to not pull the joints out as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky on the other side. The bolts and nut was completely seized on all the way through, so I had to cut it off. But you know, these are the obstacles that we have. Okay, so next you want to remove your drop links if you're keeping them, or if not and you're replacing them like me, I just cut them away just for quickness. Those with any experience with replacing drop links of this age, you'll know that it's nigh on impossible. You always have to cut them off. Okay, so next is the dreaded steering rack bolts. If anything is going to cause you any problems, it will be these two little bleeders because they tend to seize in to the steering rack and snap. So to try and overcome this and prevent it from happening, I saturated on top of the subframe where the bolt goes in with WD-40 over 3 consecutive nights, and I just knocked the bolts, shocked them with a hammer over a couple of nights, just a few times. To be fair, it wouldn't really make that much of a difference, but anything I could do to get them out in one piece, I was willing to do it, and luckily it worked for me. So secondly, you need to remove the bolts holding on the back of the subframe. There's 6 bolts in total. The 2 larger bolts on the outside are 18mm, and the 4 smaller ones in the middle are, if I can remember, 15mm. Okay, and now it's time to remove the long bolt, which would be this one. The long bolts are 18mm, and you will need an extension to go through the wishbone to reach these. And unfortunately I didn't take close-up footage of the other side, but it would be this one, exactly the same on the other side. And here it is again here. Here. And here I am just removing that bolt now, and you'll notice that I've actually got a jack under the other half of the subframe. So when I unbolt it, it's almost like having 2 pairs of hands. I'm on one side and the jack is on the other. And as I start to lower it, I drop the jack a little bit, but it will only lower so far, because as you remember, I didn't fully unbolt the engine mount. The idea being is that they get the centre of the steering rack just resting lightly onto the mount, just long enough for me to get underneath the car and grab it by 2 hands to jiggle it out. Now you do want to be careful here that you don't put too much stress on that engine mount, because don't forget it is attached to your diff. And Geronimo, pulling the rack out from underneath the car. And here's a little close-up of the subframe. And to be fair, it's not as bad at all. I was expecting it to be a lot worse. I'm really chuffed with it, because so many people take these off, and it's only when they start cleaning the thing up they realise it's full of holes and beyond repair really. But luckily mine can be salvaged, stripped down and powder coated just fine. Not too bad. I think I have caught it just in time though, for a good, continue having a good strong subframe. So here's what the underside looks like with the subframe off. Plenty of access now. And these are all the rusty old suspension components which will be replaced as well in the near future. And last but not least, just a few pointers when you finish doing a job. We're all guilty of it. Little top tip, just spend 10 minutes just tidying up as best as you can. Bag and label all your bolts, keep them all in order. Save you a lot of time and stress later on. And then I also like to store all my used bits and new bits on separate shelves in the garage. Okay guys and girls, that concludes the video for the front subframe removal on my Alfa Romeo. If you found this video useful to you, then please give me a like and subscribe down below. I'd very much appreciate it indeed. In the future I've got lots planned. I'll be covering the entire restoration on the front end, lots of other little bonus bits for you as well. I'd just like to apologise for the lack of audio in this video. I had a little bit of trouble editing it, to be honest. But you know, some people like music, some people despise it and hate it completely, so you decide. But the editing will only get better in the future, so will the videos. But yeah, keep liking, keep subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much indeed.